Hello, so I'm Armin Konjalic. I'm founder of Startup Association of Bosnia and Herzegovina. It's an umbrella organization that represents all startup organizations from Bosnian startup ecosystem and brings the voice of startups to local international media as well, to policymakers, etc. So today we are here like trying to bring to our audience our experience of what should we do and what should we avoid when we are launching startup, raising investments, and developing it further. So I've been working with startups for past, I don't know, 7-8 years in over 40 countries. So I've seen startup ecosystem building across the world, and I can say that here in the region the momentum is just coming, so things are getting on the right spot. So I guess that this panel will bring us to some conclusion what is really necessary in order to put these puzzles together. I would like to start with presenting our panelists, starting from ladies, Diana Gindo from Foundation 787. Diana, could you tell us more about your work and foundation and what it's about? Microphone works. I think you need to press button or something.
Let's see. Does it work?
Yeah.
It's a bit weird angle, but hi guys. So Foundation 787 is located here in Sarajevo, and we've been working in Bosnia with the businesses, helping them and individuals to start and of course to grow their business in first 2-3 years to achieve sustainability. In average, if we are looking, we haven't specialized in like IT industry, but we are supporting across different fields, and we are focused on women and youth, since we recognize them as group that faces more challenges in average in this country.
Okay. So what kinds of, if it's not IT, what kind of startups are applying there, and what do they get out of the program?
As I said, it's really not limited, so it's various businesses, but what we are helping them achieve is to create value and to really fulfill needs that exist on the market. What we usually see here in this country, and this is experience I can talk about, is that actually, quite often we have people in love with their ideas, or people who are crafty or good in doing something, and they think there's enough people who would buy or pay for it. So what we are having from typical female businesses in producing clothes and bags and stuff like this to some advanced versions like different platforms which then have this digital moment to medical laboratories and things like this. So very various spectrum, and what we are practicing here is very individual approach in supporting them, meaning we do this through different programs, incubator, accelerator programs, but then through this time we are having like personalized support.
Thank you. So you're helping them basically at very first step. So what's your advice for startup when they are getting first clients, getting the first partnership? So what by your experience did work well and what went wrong?
First thing is to prepare to do a lot of legwork. Meaning we have a lot of occasions where we have persons say, oh, I've done it all, I've like this will not happen because this and that reason, and government is bad, and this is wrong, etc. But then we find a lot of ideas how things could be improved and how they can actually find a good customer fit, how to find partners, etc. So first thing is that prepare for a legwork and to communicate with a lot of people, and then this means also accepting idea that if you want to have a successful business one day, that you cannot be alone, that one person team can function for a shorter period of time, but it's not bringing sustainability. So creating a team from very start, even though you don't have money still, it's very important. And then finding ways how to motivate these people to stay with you. Of course, one thing is this visionary aspect of it, but then again, if you give them a stake in some way in your business, both of you will feel more motivated, because typically for our participants, if they promise something to their team in that sense, and they cannot pay them out at the moment, it also it's personal responsibility they feel, and then they are much more successful from that aspect compared to their peers, which are having one-man show or one-woman show.
Thank you, Diana. We have Ivana Čorić from Spark Mostar. Everyone here knows about Spark, and it's one of the key elements of ecosystem in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Ivana, can you tell us more about what is Spark doing now and what are the future plans?
Okay, thank you, Armin. So Spark is a business accelerator located in Mostar. So we are doing, our most work is done with startups. We are providing them this acceleration phase, which means that we are providing them mentors, different workshops, and some our partners related to the investors and possible investment after they finish our acceleration program. Also, like the big collaboration and big network that we have will also help them to provide and to find the right exit. And also the different mentors that we are providing and the people who are working with them are already familiar with the startup world, so they will have the big experience related to the knowledge that they will acquire during our acceleration program. And in the end, our main goal is that they will have the product developed during that acceleration, and that they will have the all phases done, that they will done the market research on the right way to find what is their market and to be sure in which direction they will go next. We had a few batch of startups, and currently we are preparing the next generation for the startups, which will be in the beginning of the next year. So we will have a new and better accelerator program based on the things that we have done before. So we find our, we was one of the first accelerators in Bosnia and Herzegovina, so we had a lot of challenges, and based on our experience before, we are creating something new with our partners, so that will be something really refreshing for the startup ecosystem here in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Okay, so when startups can apply for your new accelerator batch?
The application will be open beginning of the next year, but also they are always welcome to contact us via our webpage, and we will be there in touch with them and prepare them what will be needed for the first phase of our acceleration.
Do they need to be in Mostar? Do they need to move to Mostar? How does that work?
So far they had to move to the Mostar, but now we are finding our way to be more open to the whole Bosnia and Herzegovina for sure, and then after our goal is to have this partnership and the connection in region. So we will find a way, if they are not located in Mostar, to have them in our accelerator and to work them either or remotely, or to have them in some phases located in Mostar.
Thank you. So, before I started this entrepreneurial journey, I was in sports. I was playing handball. So, and I remember that nothing was possible in our sports without support of BH Telekom. And I remember some different friends, my school friends, like Larisa Ceric, who is like world champion in judo. Like her journey would never be possible without support of this local telco company. whose, by my opinion, strongest asset is this goodwill capital, because they were enablers of sports, of culture, of all these different social infrastructure projects. And now they have some exciting announcements that they're supporting entrepreneurs in countries. And I would like to ask representative of BH Telecom, Haris Lutskin, what that we can expect from BH Telecom regarding support to startups.
Yes, thank you, Armin. You are totally all right, and thank you for promotion.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay.
Is it working?
Just pull it close. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, good.
Thank you, Armin, for these words. You are totally all right. Thank you for promotion. My name is Haris Lutskin. I'm a business management director at BH Telecom. Our main domain or our target is creating business management strategy, creating business management planning, creating offers for residential and business customers, and also for the wholesale segments, interoperability with operators, local and international. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer of Sarajevo Limited to invite BH Telecom to be a part of this regional, very important for us forum. I'm going to share with you some of ideas, planning that BH Telecom must do, or regarding our partnership project. First of all, in BH Telecom, everyone is welcome to cooperate and propose the business cooperation, so on. We have some partnership project program which you can use to share your ideas, solution, proposals, end-to-end solution, etc. To cooperate with each other, in this case with BH Telecom, to share our portfolio of services to our customers. Not only in the business-to-business domain, but also in the business-to-government domain. There is some work group which evaluates of any of ideas, these proposals, and make a final decision whether or not one proposal is good or no for the business, for BH Telecom, or especially for the BH society in general. As you know, in last business and technology conferences organized by BH Telecom, we announced one open call, one open announcement for the startup platforms. What does it mean? These platforms allows not only for startups, which is very important for today or for us, but only every business company and also our government institutions to suggest one proposal, one ideas, one end-to-end solutions, one prototype, which is benefit overall for the BH society in general. These ideas, proposals can be not only in the IoT or ICT domain, but also in the smart city domain, which is very important for us. You know, I don't know, 2 months ago, we released our smart home solutions, which consist of 2 services, one for customers with fixed infrastructure called My Smart Home, and one for customers which use wireless broadband access is called My Smart Home Anywhere. No? Also, regarding the smart city projects, as you know, we started to cooperate with our big partners regarding the smart parking, which is very important for us. Also, the other projects we planning to do very soon. So this platform for startups, it will be very, very soon released, I think in the December of this year. So I'm using this opportunity to invite every one of you to share your ideas with us directly you can send your applications directly to me, to my email address, or there is some website, BH Telecom, one place where you can send your applications. So this is.
So this startup application that they apply, what can they expect to get out from BH Telecom, and what value does BH Telecom see as a long run in investing in startups?
Yes, thank you. We are very interested in the domain of business to government. Our focus is that segment, and we tried to see any applications that can be much better in creating finally much better BH society. Not only as I told, smart parking, but also in the domain of smart WOST, smart buildings. We are very interested in that domain, and the smart lighting. So everything of proposals is very interesting for us.
Nice. We should speak. I've just done some smart road startups in Norway last week. So there's a lot of role models in more developed countries as how we can jump over this leap. We have guests from United States. Keith, he's a representative of Spring. Keith, can you tell us more about Spring and what you are doing here in Balkans? I've been seeing you for the last couple of years.
So first of all, you owe me a beer because I'm from Canada. And so
I do own you beer.
Right?
Yeah.
So, hey. Yeah, I'm from Vancouver, Canada. And so I run Spring. Spring is an incubator and accelerator. And we help entrepreneurs to change the world. So we love to work with entrepreneurs who primarily sit at the intersection of impact and tech. So that includes things like health tech, clean tech, progressive food and agri-tech, B2G, e-democracy would be like a fantastic place, streamlining systems between business and government. We love to work in impact marketplace and e-com. We started life as incubation and acceleration. We do some fun work now. We build investor networks. We currently work now in about 35 cities around the world. So that spans Asia Pacific, North America, Central America, Latin America, a little bit here in Europe as well. And our sweet spot is at early stage, helping entrepreneurs to launch, unlock early growth, raise capital. Yeah.
Okay. So what makes early stage startup investable? So regarding team, regarding idea. So at what stage they are ready to raise money and the investors are ready to write them check?
Yeah, it's a great question. So first things first, the ideal time to raise money is when you don't need it. And I know that sounds a little funny, but it is kind of a state of mind. There are ways for you to access capital, revenue being, of course, the number one way to do that, like prove your market and go and generate income. And so you raise capital when you can see opportunity for strategic lift, right? So when we were listening to the story earlier about the Badger, which was a great story, like the idea of like, do I raise 400,000 or do I raise 1.4 million? Like, what's the right amount at the right time? But it's about strategic lift. It's about increasing production, access to new markets, right? And so you're thinking about strategic lift. When you're raising money early when you're raising on an idea, it's all team because there's nothing else for the investor to go on, right? So I look at you and I say, do I trust you and your team with my money? And so for all of the entrepreneurs in the room, remember every time you talk to an investor, fundamentally that is the one question that is going through their mind every time they talk to you is, can I trust you and your team with my money? And so that means that first you have an awesome team. Second, you can show progress, right? You can overcome adversity. You can maybe generate revenue or create partnerships, for example, like with a telecom. You understand how you're different from the competition, which usually is not so different early, but you need to create competitive advantage over time. Sometimes you have an IP play and it's a little bit different. And so then as you progress towards launch and beyond, then that evaluation starts to move deeper into the product, the size of the market opportunity, exactly how you're framing competitive advantage, and then the magic word is progress. So the second lesson learned for the entrepreneurs is first, I'm always asking the question, do I trust you and your team with my money? But every time you call me or we meet in person after the first meeting, my first question is, so what's new? Right? And so what's new means tell me your progress, right? And so the last thing you would ever want to say to an entrepreneur, if I say, hey, so what's new? And you're like, not much, right? Because that would be the last time you would talk to me, right? Because you're making progress all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's all about getting trust from investors. How can startup build trust towards investors, or do startups have this curiosity to choose an investor? We've seen from Stevica stories that there might be some really shady investors with some their own personal goals that might destroy the company. So how to find the reliable investors and how to judge it?
So great question. So first, how many people here have a target market for your product? It's a trick question, should be everyone, right? Okay, so the reality is you would not walk out onto the street with a sign saying, please buy my product, right? That would be a complete waste of time. So my question for you is, why do you not do the same when you're looking for an investor, right? So we were talking earlier about the Badger. Hardware and software play with IP. That is a very specific subset of investors, right? Most investors like enterprise software as a service. That's the majority of investors. So it would be a waste of time for him to go to a bunch of pitch events with a bunch of SaaS investors, right? Because they would never look at it, right? So first, you actually have to look at the right ones. Now, here's the second trick. If you guys were thinking about hiring me as an employee, and you know that Diana and I know each other, how many people would call Diana to find out if I'm any good? Also a trick question. You're all supposed to call Diana to find out if I'm any good, right? And so the reality is that you actually are supposed to reference check your investors, right? So if you meet an investor, this is at the end of that conversation, that first conversation, if you guys like each other and the investor says, you know what, I like you, I like what you're doing, let's get this conversation going. Like, I'm interested, let's dig deeper. And you're like, awesome. You know what I'd love to do? I'd like to talk to one or two of the CEOs that you've invested in to get a sense as to how they work well with you, which is code for, I'm going to reference check you. And the interesting thing is, every time I've had an entrepreneur do that to an investor, the investor calls me up and they say, hey, Keith, do you know what this entrepreneur just did? And I'm like, what? And they're like, he just asked for references. And I'm like, awesome, what do you think? And they're like, best question I've heard all week. Because I'm going to own a piece of your company. And if I'm going to own a piece of your company, surely you should do reference check. Always, always reference check your investors.
Thank you for your advice.
Cool.
We have Predrag. Pedra, there's some exciting news. You recently joined South Central Ventures. Tell us more about what South Central is and what's your journey before it.
Sure. Thank you, and very happy to be here in Sarajevo. So South Central Ventures, or SC, is one of the largest VC funds here in Southeast Europe, focused on ex-Yugoslavia region. So we started this fund in 2015. We have about 40 million euros under management, and we do seed and Series A investments across different subsectors. So our focus is really the team, which is executing on the ideas. We have offices in Zagreb, Belgrade, and Skopje, but we are also, looking for the deals here in Bosnia. In terms of myself, yes, I started last week, and my first honeymoon was going to Montenegro last week. Now I'm here in Sarajevo, so can't complain too hard. Previously, I spent a couple of years in the startup world. I worked for a Norwegian company called Gelato, which was in the web-to-print space. And I was leading their global expansion and pretty much spent more than 2 years in the plane. And in addition to that, worked at Microsoft and lived across 6 countries, and then decided to go back home to the Balkans. So let's see if my choice was right.
Yeah. Let's say that you get the deal with some of the startups. What they actually expect? So what is the relations with investor startup after the deal is done? Is investor's job just to give money, or do they have some other work around startup? How much time do they invest in their portfolio startup?
Very fair question. So in the current environment, we have very low interest rates, and there is abundance of cheap capital.
Okay.
So I would say that just giving money is a commodity, and we saw kind of like traditional old school VC model being broken in the past. I would say probably 10 years, starting with Andreessen Horowitz in the U.S. and then some other different models, including Y Combinator. So, just to go back to us, to South Central, we definitely want to be very close to our entrepreneurs. I think we have to be, very conscious and say that, the actual entrepreneurs are the ones which are in the cockpit, and we are the enablers. We definitely want to support them in sales, in marketing, in product thinking, in finance questions, in searching for their next investment or next level or even exit at some stages, or also HR and recruitment questions. So different functional things, but also thinking about the big picture. And I would say that our involvement varies. We have 27 companies now in the portfolio, if I'm not mistaken. And then, they're in different stages of the life cycle. They need different kind of support, but, we try to be close to everyone. And I think one of the examples of the things that we do for them is this SCV summit, which we had last week, where we brought all of our portfolio founders to be together and kind of be in the safe space. Because, some of them have really the same challenges, and it's really important for them, to have a space where they can talk to each other, and maybe, some of them would have hacks or solutions that would solve each other's problems.
South Central Ventures still did not invest in any Bosnian teams, so I guess the expectations are really high. What are expectations so that Bosnian startups can get into this club?
Yeah, well, I would definitely love that, we make a first investment here in Bosnia. And I think that, different things need to be aligned. In terms of the criteria, in terms of the things that we look first for, I think is, there has to be, the starting point is a problem. And, going from that perspective, there really has to be something which is tangible, and then from there to have a kind of thinking on the solution for it. And I think that the element which we focus on first is really, the team element. And, we want the founders that are committed to it. We don't invest very early on, so we are not, putting the pre-seed amounts, which probably kind of limits the playing field for us here in Bosnia. So we want them, to be at a certain thresholds and, to be dedicated full-time if possibly. I know it's difficult sometimes, but also, to have kind of like a global ambitions and global mindset. What we saw, for example, in Macedonia and Serbia and some startup is where, connections between diaspora and the expats from this country that are living abroad and the local teams can be very fruitful and very interesting for us. So I would say team is at the first place. We also want to see some traction in terms of the product and the customers. Doesn't have to be some huge contracts, but sometimes even getting an email from a customer saying, hey, we really love what you guys are doing, and we are more than happy to, support you, can make a difference. And then also thinking about the market and how big it can get, because at the end of the day, we are financial investors, and we need to achieve some targets and returns that our LPs are asking from us.
Thank you, Pedro. Stevica, you shared amazing presentation. We gained a lot of lessons about your entrepreneurial journey. Thank you for sharing that. Could you share us more information about Fil Rouge Capital and your investment strategy, and how much we will see this, if there is missing pre-seed capital in Bosnia, how much pre-seed investments can you make? And yeah.
Thank you, Armin, for the opportunity to basically present the Fil Rouge Capital. So, Fil Rouge Capital is a venture capital fund. We manage 45 million euros. If I'm not mistaken, it's the fastest done deal with the European Investment Fund. It was like 365 days, 1 year exactly, from the time when tender was on until all deals were signed. Out of those 45 million, 9 million euros are prepared for early stage investments. This means 8 million is going through our accelerator stage, and we're investing in 8 or 9 accelerator batches, about 20 teams a batch, 2 batches per year, which is about 160 investments. 50,000 euros per startup for 8% of equity.
Nice.
For that, startups get, well, the money, of course, but you get the opportunity to enter the venture capital world. You get our really great mentors network. One of our mentors is Mate Rimac, the innovator and basically the producer of the hyper sports car, and you get to be guided and helped by us, by the whole team, in 10 weeks program. So that's 3 months program, 3 times a week. On Tuesdays we have something we call Founders Dinner. On Founders Dinner, one of the eminent startup founders from our network is talking about their experience and what they did wrong and what they did good. On Wednesday and Thursdays we have workshops and seminars, and of course our office hours and mentors office hours. After those 10 weeks we have a demo day, and we expect that all of our startups will show exponential growth and something good that's going to happen with them. And I have to mention, there are lots of programs here in the region, accelerator programs that might give money at the end of the program. Our intention is invest very early in the program, and that's something that's all startup founders dependent. So we expect that our investees will open the companies in Croatia. They have to open the company in Croatia because we cannot invest if the company is not open in Croatia. And as soon as they open the company, we sign the deal and put 50K immediately in the company, so you could spend it in the next 3 weeks. So you can invest it in your strategy. Besides that, we have super early stage that we call Startup School. That's 10,000 euros. For accelerator stage, you need to have MVP. You need to have some kind of users. If you have customers, that's even better. But for Startup School, you don't have to have MVP. Basically, you have to have a good idea, and Keith said, really great, the team need to show the potential. Even if the idea is crappy, we're gonna say, guys, let's talk. Let's see what you can do with 10,000 euros. Come to Zagreb, come to Croatia, we're gonna invest in you, and do your best in the next few weeks, some reasonable time. That doesn't mean that we want you to bleed the money for 2 months for those 10K or 50K. We don't want you to bleed 6 months, 9 months, or even a year. You're there to invest the money, to try your strategy. If you fail, well, close the company or whatnot. It's an option. It's a normal thing. And when it comes for the VC compartment, the rest of the money to 45 million euros is going through deal by deal stage. So we negotiate a deal with any startup, and our plan is to invest between 200,000 euros to 2 million euros per deal. And we believe that we're going to make 30 to 40 deals in the next 4 years.
Thank you so much. So we are very limited with time. We have one more question. Let me think what's the good question. So usually people here that are about thinking to raise an investment, they don't really understand much differences between taking credit, taking loan, taking investments, etc. So what are consequences of startup if a funded startup if it failed? So how in that situation, how investors are protecting their own interests and rights? Does the startup own to investor something, or how does that work? It's question to Keith, Peja, or Stevica. What happens when startups fail?
Well, basically, VC investors expect startups to succeed. If you as a startup fail and you do not learn from your mistake, and we as investors do not learn from our mistake of selecting the wrong team, that's a fail. That's a real fail. But if you fail and learn a lot from it, and you know what mistakes you did, then it's a success, basically. And most of investors will say, okay, let's try again. But to answer your question directly, from a VC perspective, founders do not owe anything to investors. Well, basically that includes the angel investors. If that continues to my talk about angel investors, if angel investors would like you to owe them something or a lot, if your venture will fail, well, run away.
I think that, for me, a very inspirational example of what Stevica was saying is, I think it's most important thing to build a trust with investors. And hey, at the end of the day, we might fail. I mean, the challenges that the entrepreneurs are taking are super difficult. I mean, it takes a lot of courage and a lot of bravery to go through all of that. And, we are financially savvy, and, we are well aware that, we invest in highly innovative but also highly risky ventures. So for me, this example is really Slack. I guess you know the story, right? Yeah. There was an entrepreneur, Stuart Butterfield. He did a couple of ventures with, mixed successes. And then he took $20 million, I guess, Series 18. 18, yeah, where Andreessen Horowitz was one of the investors, and he was supposed to build a gaming startup. And he burned most of his money, right? And then he realized, I'm not going to make it. I'm going to give you back the money. And then, they had a board meeting, and the investor said, no. Try to do whatever you can. And then he said, well, my guys in their spare time, they were thinking about how to improve communications internally. So they built this thing Slack. So, maybe we'll give it a try. And the investor said, we are all aboard. We're all behind you. Let's go. And now this company had an IPO a couple of months ago. I think they're, valued over $10 billion. So it's really an example where, these dynamics work in a good way.
Yeah, maybe if I, hold on. There we go. Hey, I'll just add one more thing. To what the guys have shared, yes, it is known risk. You do have to understand that investors are expecting a return, but they understand the risk. And so I think if you want to be an outstanding entrepreneur, what you want to do is walk with integrity with your investors. Like we both mutually understand the risk, but you want to treat my investment as if it was as if I was your father or your uncle or your cousin, right? Like, don't treat it as some stranger has thrown money at me and I lose, I don't, like whatever. treat the investment very seriously. You know, people are trusting you with their money, and they're trusting you to work hard and to persevere and to adapt, right? And so the Slack example is a very, very good example of that, where Stuart went through the process of, you know, working with the investors to say what's possible, and they adapted significantly. What started off as a massive multiplayer online game became Slack. And so it's a really good example of like working with the investors, trying to get some value out of them. And if it fails, I think, you know, the original comment about like, show that you've learned, show that you were a good steward of their money, you'll find those early angel investors will often be the first investors in your next venture, right? So build that trust and that relationship and walk with integrity.
Thank you so much, Keith. Diana?
If I may add, if we bring it down to the realistic situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina, what we usually do, what we usually see is that startups actually raise seed money, so smaller amounts, and in our experience, this is typically not financially thought through, which means that within 1 year, even less, they need to raise additional money. And for this reason, I would just add on what Keith said, it's what we say here, ide vam na obraz. But it actually can help you build relationships, and you should take mentor in that period. This actually has been shown as a crucial element. So be prepared that first round is just first round, first experience, and then they will be more coming as you grow.
Yeah, thanks. So in this panel, startups can find partners for investment and strategic partners in various cases. So please engage with us. From 1:30, we will be judging the startups. We have 24 startup presentations today in the side event. It's in basement. Please ask volunteers how to get there. We will have a lot of fun with startups today. So thank you all for taking.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks.